Welcome to the Kyoto University Graduate School of Education Global Education Office webinar series. I'm a junior associate professor at the Global Education Office. My name is Sachi Ando. The Global Education Office has focused on the Japanese model of education and has been hosting a webinar series. In 2020, the theme was toward critical, historical, and transnational dialogues on Japanese model of education. This year, the 2022 webinar series will ask the question, can Japanese model of education withstand the diversity challenges, and examine diversity in Japan, such as LGBTQ, gender, ethnicity, language, and disability issues, shed light on obstacles faced by Japanese school education, and explore diversity education from theoretical and practical lenses. Today is this year's second webinar. And for our guest speaker, we have a research student from Osaka University Graduate School of Human Sciences, Mr. Jun Mikami. Mr. Mikami specializes in physical education and sports as it relates to gender and sexuality, and focuses on homophobia in sports. To date, he has written single author and co-authored studies on sports and gender, and many of his articles have been published widely. Furthermore, he's done surveys on LGBT-friendly workplaces and environments. He is well informed on education and diversity and building a more inclusive society. And I personally have been very much looking forward to today's talk. Today's topic is school athletic club activities and physical education teachers in Japan from a gender perspective. Please leave your comments and questions in the chat. We will have a Q&A session after the talk. And with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Mr. Mikami. I'd like to share my screen now. Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm a doctoral student at Osaka University's Graduate School of Human Sciences, and my name is Jun Mikami. Today's talk is titled School Athletic Club Activities and Physical Education Teachers in Japan from a Gender Perspective. Under this theme, I hope to address the webinar series topic, Can Japanese Model of Education Withstand the Diversity Challenges? Simply put, today, the topic of the problems seen in physical education or PE teachers on gender issues will be the starting point, and I'll trace these problems to an important part of one's path to becoming a PE teacher, school athletic clubs, and its sexist culture. With this hypothesis, I'll discuss a part of my own research. In regards to how this re-examines the Japanese model of education, first, one characteristic of the Japanese model is cultivating orderly lifestyle habits. And what have been responsible for these aspects of children's education are PE teachers who take on student guidance and the school athletic clubs unique to Japan. At first glance, athletic clubs appear to foster children's growth, and intimately tied to that are PE teachers, but the kinds of diversity they have excluded or continue to exclude is what I hope to provide insight into in my talk. Today, I understand some participants may be joining us from overseas. So the slides are as shown, with Japanese on the left and English on the right. When graphs are used, the slides may not follow this side-by-side format, but Japanese and English information are provided. Okay, let's get started. Before we begin, I'll share today's agenda. First off, I'd like to share my background and where I'm coming from, so I'll give a brief self-introduction. Next, on the two topics of PE and gender and PE teachers and school athletic club activities, I'll introduce precedent studies and talk about my research questions in my work. With that, in order to contextualize PE and athletic clubs within the Japanese model of education, I'll explain how PE classes and athletic clubs are positioned. Following that, for the main portion of today's talk, I'll share my research in two sections. First, I'll present real-life examples of sexist conversations in athletic clubs and discuss how they function. In the other section, I'll share how sexism in athletic clubs and aspirations of becoming a PE teacher are linked, with results of a gender-based analysis. Lastly, I'll summarize today's talk. So I'll start with the self-introduction. I was born in 1995, so I'm currently 27 years old. I've only just begun my research, so I'm still in the middle of my studies. Today's theme is sports, and I've always played sports ever since I was little. Elementary school and junior high school combined, I played baseball for 7 to 8 years. In high school, I started track and field, and I'm still involved in the sport as a grad student. Through the years, I was often a team captain, and especially in my junior high and high school days, I was basically going to school just to be in athletic clubs. From these experiences, I wanted to become a PE teacher and obtained my license. But a university lecture on sports and gender led me to research this topic for my graduation thesis. That was the start, and I've continued my research ever since. Why did I introduce myself like this? It's because at the root of today's talk are my own athletic club experiences and my decision to become a PE teacher based on those experiences, my own personal process. And as a big turning point for me, I encountered gender studies, and that ties into my own research perspectives. My talk today is informed by these perspectives, and I wanted you to be aware of that. From here, we get into the research, but before talking about my own work, I'd like to summarize precedent studies on PE and gender and PE teachers and school athletic club activities. I say that, but since we may have overseas participants today, I will first contextualize Japanese PE teachers and PE as a school subject in Japan. Here, a PE teacher is a faculty member hired to teach health and PE and primarily works in junior high and high schools. First, let's examine Japanese PE teachers' roles. These roles vary depending on the person and the school, so it's difficult to summarize in one description, but I'll explain the general understanding of the responsibilities. The first role is subject teaching or teaching PE classes. They're PE teachers, so this is obvious. They conduct day-to-day PE lessons. The second important role is athletic club guidance. Japanese school clubs, as I explain later, are something students voluntarily participate in. But the rate of involvement is very high, the practice time is long, and teachers work over holidays to advise clubs. This role is not limited to PE teachers. So those with no sports experience who teach other subjects may also coach athletic clubs, but PE teachers are especially expected to put their effort into athletic clubs and produce results. In Japan, Coaching athletic clubs and supporting operations of sports organizations are often connected, so coaches tend to accept the position of an official in such organizations. Thirdly, in many schools, PE teachers are expected to perform student guidance. The actual details may vary, but for example, they may reprimand students who are not lining up properly during school assemblies and ceremonies, or they're dyeing their hair, wearing makeup, or not wearing the uniforms according to the guidelines, things perceived as problematic behaviors in Japan. PE teachers are expected to reprimand them. PE teachers are often perceived as sportsmanlike, authoritative, and intimidating, which may be why this role is expected of them. But this is another responsibility that should not be carried out only by PE teachers. It's just that it has a tendency to fall on their shoulders. The perception of PE teachers who are expected to take on these roles have been studied. In one survey targeting university students, the reported perception was someone who is physically strong and has a strong backbone, but lacks culture, is not enthusiastic about teaching, scaring, and not admired by students. This is a slightly dated survey, so if a similar survey was done today, I'm not sure if we would get the same results, but this describes the general impression of PE teachers in Japan. So hopefully an image of a PE teacher has been implanted. Now, what is the PE teacher's subject, physical education, really like? PE's objective from elementary to high school, although wording in the guidelines for the course of study may vary, is fairly consistent. It is to foster throughout one's life the disposition and ability to maintain and improve mental and physical health and take part in enriching sports practice. In other words, the nurturing of a lifelong sports practice is the goal of PE. The subject is broadly divided into physical education and health. For the practical portion of PE, I've added a red border here. Track and field, swimming, bowl games, Budo or Japanese martial arts, and other competitive sports notably make up the core of this list.
Let's also look at athletic club activities. In the guidelines for the course of study by the Ministry of Education, athletic clubs are positioned as a voluntary extracurricular activity. But it also states that athletic club activities are conducted as a part of school education. Therefore, while it is a part of the school education, it is not part of the official school curriculum. Thus, athletic clubs are situated in quite an ambiguous position within the system, and there are no adequate measures to regulate the duration of practice and so on. And voluntary participation means that if students want their team to win, essentially they can easily overcommit and become absorbed in these club activities. Therefore, students become very dedicated, and strict, rigorous training is very common. There also has been discourse on the varied educational significance of athletic club activities. For example, development of sociality and acquisition of good manners are included in moral education thought to be carried out by athletic club activities, which may promote a very Japanese method of education. I'd also like to go over the current state of athletic club activities. Firstly, a 2017 study found that about 30% of schools required, in principle, that all students register and participate in a club, even though club participation should be voluntary. Some clubs are more cultural, quote unquote, such as brass band and art. But about 70% of students, a notably high percentage, belong to athletic clubs. Furthermore, about 90% of schools adopted a system in which all teachers took on the role of advising club activities. Such a system has caused overtime work for teachers. Club activities are extracurricular, so they take place after school and on weekends. And overseeing these activities is the responsibility of the teachers who are assigned as club advisor. For this reason, advising club activities require overtime labor. This is partly why 57.7% of junior high school teachers work 80 hours overtime monthly, and 40.7% work 100 hours plus overtime monthly. Additionally, it is difficult for teachers to take time off for the extra days they have already worked. I hope you got a sense of the general outline of today's theme, physical education and athletic club activities. From here on, I'd like to look at precedent studies that examine the relationship between gender and physical education and athletic club activities. First, regarding physical education and gender, we can observe a different attitude towards PE classes between women and men. This graph I'm showing here shows the results of a national survey on physical fitness, athletic performance, and fitness habits conducted by the Japan Sports Agency in 2021, in which 8th graders were asked to respond to the statement, "I think health and PE classes are enjoyable." You can see that men tend to find PE classes enjoyable, while women often find PE classes not enjoyable. Similar trends were observed in a survey that I conducted. This graph here shows the results of a survey in which approximately 1,000 first-year university students were asked the question, "Did you like PE class in junior high school?" Within our survey, we asked a three-part question pertaining to the respondents' gender, the gender marker on their family register, their gender identity, and their sexual orientation. Based on these categories, we defined cisgender heterosexual respondents as the majority and others as minorities, and converted the data into a graph. As a result, many who responded that they enjoyed PE classes in middle school were majority men, while those who did not enjoy PE classes were from the minority in their gender identity and sexual orientation. Furthermore, in response to the question of whether they had experiences that made them not want to take PE classes, many minority subjects answered that they often had such experiences, while majority men answered that they never had such experiences. The results show that PE tends to become a site of learning that is particularly comfortable for majority men, while for majority women and minorities, it can easily become a subject they want to avoid. What brings about these differences? It can be hypothesized that students' attitudes towards PE classes are linked to the ways in which these classes are conducted. And it's none other than the PE teachers who create these classes. So I'd now like to turn to some research that examines PE teachers' understandings of gender and how they actually engage with students in class. First, the work of Itani, who interviewed PE teachers, is a valuable reference about perspectives on gender that teachers internalize. What PE teachers share in these interviews is that they believe men and women are fundamentally different. They do not doubt that men's physical ability is superior to that of women's, and they particularly value competitiveness and commitment in physical education, as well as the ability to persevere through rigorous training. The research points out that PE teachers internalize these types of skewed views on gender. But additionally, the survey I conducted, targeting university students in teacher training, shows that compared to students pursuing other majors, such as Japanese, mathematics, and other subjects, physical education majors, especially men, showed a stronger sense of homophobia. While the survey did not target just PE teachers, the work shows that homophobia is characteristically seen among a group that aspires to become PE teachers. Furthermore, there is also research based on actual classroom observation. These are conducted based on the concept of the hidden curriculum. A hidden curriculum is defined as knowledge that is mutually transmitted between teachers and between students and other students that occurs on a different plane than the explicit curriculum outlined in the guidelines for the course of study. In the surveys by Itani et al. And Katada, which focused especially on how teachers engage with students, the results revealed that there is a higher expectation placed on boys compared to girls. For example, in endurance runs, boys were told to aim for 4 laps, while girls only 3. And instruction tended to be tougher on boys. In regards to how gender influences students' treatment, it has been pointed out that the problem lies within sports itself, that it has been used as a tool to foster masculinity. In other words, students' involvement, experiences, and attitudes in relation to PE has differed on the basis of gender because sports, which has always been tied to masculinity, is situated at the center of the subject. However, there has not been sufficient consideration on what kinds of experiences encountered through sports led to the internalization of homophobia and aforementioned views on gender in PE teachers. Research on the socialization of PE teachers may provide insight into this inquiry. Here, socialization of PE teachers is seen as a lifelong process in which a person experiences PE and sports in schools, at home, and in their local community. This person consequently chooses the path of teacher training in PE and continues to integrate the profession into their identity once they've become a PE teacher. The first scholar to theorize this was Hal Lawson. Prior to their work, Dan Lordy put forth a paradigm of occupational socialization theory for teachers in general, not just limited to PE teachers. And Lordy emphasized the impact of one's experience prior to entering teacher training, that is to say, their experience as a pupil up until high school on a person's career choice. Lawson was the one to apply this theory to PE teachers. According to Lawson, people who enter PE teacher training have 2 characteristics. They are coaching oriented and teaching oriented, although, of course, some people can have both of these characteristics. Those who are passionate about playing sports and have achieved good results in sports in the past are more interested in coaching. In other words, they are thought to have chosen the path of becoming a PE teacher because they find the idea of coaching sports to be more appealing than PE classes. On the other hand, those who have been more involved in PE and physical activities than sports are interested in teaching physical education, PE. These theories still aid our understanding of this topic, considering that Lawson has presented numerous other hypotheses, and Matthew Kurtner Smith, a scholar on the socialization of PE teacher, has claimed that research conducted after 1983 on the experience prior to entering teacher training have demonstrated that the hypotheses are correct. Although there are only a few research that has been conducted in Japan, research in Japan examining junior high and high school experiences in relation to the socialization of PE teachers. First, we have the work of Fukasawa and Tsushima from 1982. They surveyed PE teachers and asked questions about their experiences prior to becoming a PE teacher. Their analysis showed that a large percentage of PE teachers belonged to school athletic clubs, achieved high scores in competitive sports, listed their teacher as a psychological significant other, and claimed that play and sports outside of PE class influenced their choice to become PE teachers. We can see that the experience of school athletic clubs and the choice to become a PE teacher are very linked. Additionally, Asakura and Shimizu analyzed the experiences of two PE teachers based on their lives before becoming educators. They point out that the two subjects chose their universities based on their experiences of active involvement in athletic clubs, and that this laid down the foundations for their career choice. The authors also note that the PE teachers served a teacher like role in athletic clubs, such as coming up with workout regimens as a team captain or coaching a team at their alma mater, and listed a sports instructor or coach as a significant other. From these studies, we can understand that participation in athletic clubs informs individuals' decisions to become sports instructors, and this occurs in the socialization of PE teachers. Therefore, given the precedent studies on the subject of PE and gender, one can hypothesize that PE teachers' fixed views on gender are formed through their experiences within athletic club activities. Alongside these research interests of mine, I'd like to look at a study that is important to consider when thinking about views on gender as it relates to athletic clubs, which could be considered a common foundation for choosing PE teacher as a profession. I'd like to introduce a study conducted in the US with a focus on interactions amongst athletes and between coaches and athletes. The first study is an analysis of locker room conversations amongst male college athletes conducted by Curry. According to Curry, athletes were observed objectifying women by making remarks such as, "I saw very large breasts in the training room," referring to a woman just by her body part, and induced laughter by imitating gay stereotypes. It was noted that these actions had deepened the bond amongst teammates. It was also reported that coaches made similar remarks and actions in order to get closer to the athletes. To cite another work, Fair conducted an ethnographic study of a high school male wrestling team. In his analysis, he observed that athletes exhibit homophobia through the use of misogynistic terms like pussy and rarely utters explicitly homophobic terms, which he states leads to the construction of normative masculinity. From these analyses, we can understand the construction of normative masculinity in the context of sports and the formation of misogynistic and homophobic views in the process of fraternal bonding. Misogyny is defined as hatred or prejudice against women, and homophobia is the fear of or prejudice against homosexuality or gay people. Now, I'd like to summarize my research questions based on the precedent studies that I've shared so far. From the studies I presented, we can see that PE teachers' gender perspectives and homophobia are seen as problematic. And we also know that athletic club activities play an important role in the formation of these attitudes and understandings. In other words, the socialization of PE teachers. I think there is a need to focus on the fact that, particularly in men's sports groups, misogyny and homophobia take shape in order to construct normative masculinity and strengthen fraternal bonds. Based on the above, one can postulate that an analysis of misogyny and homophobia in athletic club activities may lead to an examination of problematic gender views amongst PE teachers. For this reason, my major research theme has been a detailed analysis of misogyny and homophobia in athletic clubs and the investigation of the ways in which this ties into the aspirations of becoming a PE teacher. So from here on, I'd like to get into the contents of my own research. What I will be talking about today is based on the results of these three surveys listed below. I will go into more details as we take a closer look, but I will give a brief explanation here. Number one is an individual interview to examine homophobia in the context of school athletic club activities. Number two is a group interview to examine misogyny and homophobia in the context of school athletic club activities. This survey was also conducted with the purpose of creating questionnaire items for the survey in number three. Number three is a questionnaire survey that covers a rather wide range of topics, but it asks about the subject's experiences in school athletic clubs, their aspirations to become PE teachers, and their attitudes towards sexism. For my presentation, I would first like to share actual examples of misogynistic and/or homophobic conversations taking place in school athletic clubs, and then move on to discussing the relevance of these conversations in regards to the aspirations of becoming a PE teacher.
First, I will share from the interviews real-life examples of misogynistic, homophobic conversations in school athletic clubs. Here, I show conversations that actually take place to reveal the issues of fraternal bonding that occur in athletic clubs. However, women are sexually objectified in misogynistic conversations, and those seen as gay are attacked in homophobic conversations, and these may trigger some people or cause strong discomfort. For some, just hearing these could bring up painful or traumatic memories. If you have any concerns, please feel free to skip this next section, and I will indicate with a slide and notify via the chat when this portion ends. As it can be seen here in the chat. Take any measures needed, such as muting the audio. We begin with a brief overview of both interviews. Number one is an individual interview survey conducted in 2018. The subjects were PE majors in Teacher Training University, 3 women and 2 men, all cisgender and heterosexual. Homophobic speech and action in school PE class and other sports-related scenarios were the interview topic. Number two is a group interview survey conducted in 2020. The author's acquaintances or friends who were in junior high or high school athletic clubs were the target. There are 3 groups of 3 for a total of 9 subjects. Everyone is cisgender and heterosexual. This study was intended to help generate questionnaire items for a survey. So the content was based on skills and habits acquired in clubs and customs, unspoken rules, and social climate among club members, these 2 major themes. The interview subjects' details are attached as supplementary material on the last slide, so please refer to that for more information. Now let's look at real-life examples of misogynistic and homophobic conversations. First, among the women, let's see what kinds of conversations take place. Shown here is a transcript from a group of 3 women. The alphabets are the subject pseudonyms, and JM refers to my own remarks. First, Ms. F said, it's kind of a stereotype, but I think inappropriate banter happens a lot in boys' athletic clubs. Maybe it's my prejudice, I'm not sure. Seems like it happens a lot there. But in women-only groups, she said they rarely made dirty jokes. To that statement, Ms. D and Ms. E agreed. In this way, these women did not mention any misogynistic conversations or dirty jokes within women and girls' athletic clubs. Of course, my presence as an interviewer may have prevented the women from speaking openly, but this is how the group interview subjects responded. Although I cannot share it with you today, currently I am conducting another interview survey, and there is mention of dirty jokes amongst women, so I plan to analyze that in the future. Next is a men-only group discussing misogynistic conversations that take place in athletic clubs. It's a bit long, so I will use 2 slides to present it. First, Mr. A told the following story. When one of the upperclassmen had sex with his girlfriend, it was her period or something, and he got some blood on his hand. So from then on, he was nicknamed Red Finger. He was constantly teased like, "Hey, Red Finger." Mr. A continued, eventually he'd use the nickname himself like a self-deprecating joke or a funny anecdote. People will find out what it's about for sure. That's a super private thing. But the funny upperclassman would say things like that, anything for a laugh, even at his own expense. During this story, Mr. C nodded his head, so we asked if he had a similar experience. Mr. C was in the boys' soccer club and said a female team manager was once in a relationship with a male athlete. There were people dating within the club. We'd ask every time how far they went when he went to her place for the first time while we were all changing, for example. Putting hand on his chest, he goes, they were inverted. From then on, the manager's nickname was inverted. Mr. C described experiencing women being sexually objectified and how that caught on as a nickname. Mr. B also said if people got together, they would joke about the girlfriend. What do these real-life examples reveal? First, conversations that sexually objectify women are conducted in a way that emphasizes that the male interlocutors are heterosexual subjects. Also, while it is acknowledged that the topics are super private in nature, it is shared anyway by quote unquote asking every time how far they went sexually. As you can see, what is used here to get a laugh is women's bodies. And yet, these conversations are interpreted as the men's self-deprecating jokes, and those who share them are evaluated as being funny. Through these misogynistic conversations in athletic clubs, we can see how fraternal bonds are formed. Next, let's look at homophobic conversations. First, from one man's individual interview, we note homophobic conversation between coaches and athletes. Mr. V said about a junior high school athletic club coach in the boys' locker room after practice, if they saw boys being friendly with each other, they'd say, "Hey, are you guys gay? You two dating?" Honestly, there was a lot of that. However, it seems these behaviors did not come from a lack of knowledge on the part of the coaches. Mr. V continued, in a meeting, the coach would say, "Do you all know the difference between gay and transgender?" So I think this teacher had a proper understanding. Even then, in certain situations, they would tease like that. So it made me think, oh, it must be okay to joke like this. Mr. V felt that because the coaches knew there were no girls around, they made these comments as a shared joke between the men. This overlaps with Curry's point. In other words, even though this coach had the correct understanding, he went on to make homophobic remarks. And in that, there is a clear intention of getting closer to the athletes. Next, let's look at the homophobic conversations between athletes. This is also from the individual interview and is told by a majority male participant. Mr. Y says, There is a high school track and field selection camp where from various high schools, the year's top 5 athletes in each event come together. During the camp, there was a piggyback relay race or practice for that, and there was a boy with a very high-pitched voice. At his high school, I'm not sure if this is true, but he was apparently teased for being gay. I stayed in the same room as him, and each time he spoke, the guys would imitate his voice. At first, I thought they were only teasing about his voice, but then they started saying, "You're so gay." I realized it wasn't teasing. It felt more like bullying. So what do these homophobic conversations signify? Here, let's look at the work of a men's studies scholar who's written a lot on sports, Messner. Messner states as follows: the main policing mechanism used to enforce consent with the dominant conversation are misogyny and homophobia. In fact, it is a key part of the group process of dominance bonding that one or more members of the male group are made into the symbolic, debased, and degraded feminized other, through which the group members bond and feel that their status as men is safely ensured. So, in the case of Mr. Y, the homophobic conversation in the athletic club degrades the boy with the high voice as gay, and the non targeted athletes bond and secure their status as men. It is not only through the earlier misogynistic conversations, but also through these homophobic conversations that boys and men bond. These men assert their heterosexuality through objectification of women and the exclusion of assumed homosexuality, thereby maintaining the homogeneity of the group. This is an extremely exclusionary bond. Finally, we look at homophobic conversations amongst women. Handball was the sports club Ms. Zed belonged to, and she says, "I might have said to my peers in the handball club, 'You're such a leslie,' or 'You must be a lesbo.' Two girls who were especially close would talk on the phone every day. They would go, 'We were on the phone last night,' and I would immediately jump in to say, 'Hold on, you're basically dating.' They would kiss a lot on the cheek. I'd see that and would say, 'All right, that's enough now, we get it.' Walking with arms linked, that's pretty common for girls, so it felt like that. I didn't think much of it." Here, Ms. Zed says intimacy between girls is not inappropriate or quote unquote weird. We cannot say that calling someone a les or engaging in this banter is not homophobic, and I think it would be wrong to make such a judgment. However, it is clearly different from how male athletes form bonds using aggressive speech and actions. But again, based on this, we cannot claim that amongst women, homophobic conversations do not take place. Regarding the significance of these conversations on women, I hope to analyze that in detail in the future. This marks the end of the interview excerpts. From the next slide on, it will show an analysis of the questionnaire results. Within the survey, a question asks about encountering words like fag, lesbo, one in the context of homophobic banter. Slides will include these discriminatory terms, but there are no specific descriptions of scenes. Now, given the interview survey, let's look at how these misogynistic, homophobic conversations relate to aspirations of becoming a PE teacher from the analysis of the questionnaire survey. Questionnaire survey was conducted in 2 phases between February through March 2021 and April through July 2021. We will refer to the former as period 1 and the latter as period 2. Period 1 subjects were authors' acquaintances and seminar students of teachers at the university. Roughly 1,600 students total received the survey link and 397 responded. Period 2 subjects are those who received the link in classes taught by teachers at the university. I asked 25 teachers to share the link, which was distributed to about 3,000 students, and 755 responded. In both cases, Google Form was used to conduct the surveys online. The survey asked about questionnaire items based on the group interviews and also about their aspirations for becoming a teacher. Graduate students were included, so some were in their 30s or older, but the analysis was limited to teenage students and those in their 20s. As a result, number of respondents subject to the analysis was 1,145.
First, let's review the characteristics of the subjects. They range in age from 18 to 29 years old with an average age of 19.9. Based on the answers of the gender marker on their family register, gender identity, and sexual orientation, we defined those who are cisgender and heterosexual as the majority and those who are not as the minority. The percentages are 16.3% for minorities, 44.6% for majority females, and 39.2% for majority males. In terms of career goals, 5.8% wanted to be PE teachers, 34.6% wanted to teach other subjects or elementary school, and 59.6% aspired to become other professions. Those wishing to become teachers were asked about their preferences on advising club activities. 41.3% wanted to be coaches for athletic clubs, 12.1% wanted to be advisors for non-athletic clubs, 12.7% wanted to be advisors without a preference for the type of club, and 33.9% did not want to be advisors at all. Next, we will look at what club activities the subjects belong to in junior high school and high school. The chart on the left represents their junior high school years, and the right represents their high school years. In junior high, 64.9% belong to an athletic club, 22.9% to a cultural club, and 7.2% to an off-campus athletic club, and 5.5% did not belong to a club at all. For high school, the percentage of students in athletic clubs dropped to 57.8%, while the percentage of students who belonged to a cultural club and students who did not belong to a club increased to 28.8% and 12% respectively. Before looking at how the respondents answer to the questions, I want to go over the questionnaire items. First, here are the items related to communication among peers in club activity. Was there a tendency to joke about romantic experiences? Was sharing information about romantic experiences with peers normalized? Were jokes about sexual activity made in order to improve banter? Was there a tendency to give nicknames that alluded to sexual matters? Was there a tendency to touch and show one's body to others? And was there a tendency to tease people using words like lesi, gay, homo, one, etc.? Note that terms like banter and teasing are used in the survey because there are many situations in Japan where this kind of behavior is considered acceptable. But as we saw in the previous interview, banter and teasing can very much develop into serious bullying. Of course, we cannot go over all of the items, but I will present a comparison based on whether the respondent has been in an athletic club or not. Note that the classification into female and male is based on the gender marker on the person's family register. The reason for this is that athletic clubs divide students into female and male, and generally this division relies on what is on the person's family register. Purpose of this study is to examine the degree to which this kind of quote-unquote teasing occurs within groups that are divided within this binary framework. Now, shown here are the answers to the question, was there a tendency to joke about romantic experiences? The percentage of male-assigned respondents who answered often was significantly higher among those who had athletic experience. Among female-assigned respondents, the percentage of those who answered often or sometimes was higher among those who had been in an athletic club than among those who had not been in an athletic club. This suggests that such banter is more likely to occur within athletic clubs. The next item is, was joking about sexual activity brought up to improve banter? Here again, we see that the percentage of male-assigned respondents with athletic experience who say that it happened often or sometimes is notably high. Finally, we will discuss the item, was there a tendency to tease people using words like lesi, gay, homo, one, etc.? The percentage of male-assigned respondents who said often or sometimes was higher than that of female-assigned respondents, with a higher percentage of those who had been in an athletic club. The trends in the responses suggest that misogynistic, homophobic conversations amongst peers are particularly prevalent within male athletic clubs. Next are the items created based on the group interviews regarding the behaviors of coaches within club activities. In addition to the items 4 to 8, which are sexual speech and behavior by the coaches, there are also items that question the guidance aspect of the advisors, such as how they reprimanded students, or how they mentioned students' appearance or personal lives when reprimanding them, in cases such as when they had poor grades. Now let's look at the trends for a few questionnaire items regarding the speech and behavior of the coaches. First, regarding the item, did advisors say things towards club members, such as they act like a boy, girl, man, or woman, or oh, it's because they're a man, woman, boy, girl? With these questions, a very large percentage of male-assigned respondents, 86.1%, who had never been in an athletic club said not at all. This did not happen at all, while the percentages for the other groups did not change significantly. Next, regarding the item, did advisors make sexual jokes or innuendos? We can see that there were very few male-assigned respondents with experience in athletic clubs that said advisors never made such remarks. However, we can see overall many respondents answered not so much or not at all, indicating that basically advisors do not often make sexually explicit remarks. The last item is whether the advisor ever said or did anything that was homophobic. This also shows a similar trend to the previous item. In other words, although there is a lower percentage of males with experience in athletic clubs that answered never in regards to these experiences, overall there is a large percentage who answered not very much or not at all. Now, I will wrap up by examining how these misogynistic or homophobic conversations relates to those who aspire to become PE teachers. To do this, we will first quantify the communication among peers factor and the speech and behavior of the advisor factor, each consisting of multiple question items, into a single score by means of a principal component analysis. Shown here are the results of the principal component analysis of the items related to communication among peers. One principal component was extracted, and both items show high positive loadings, as you can see here. So, we name this first principal component peer culture regarding sexuality and romantic relationships, in the sense that the more experiences one has from the questionnaire items, the higher the score will be. Next are the results of the principal component analysis of the advisor's speech and behavior. Two principal components were extracted from this analysis. In today's discussion, I would like to use only the first principal component with the highest contribution rate for the analysis that follows. Looking at the first principal component, we can see that along with the guidance aspect of punishment and references to students' personal lives, sexual jokes and homophobic speech and behavior also show high positive loadings. For this reason, we name this first principal component advisors, guidance of students, and sexual behavior speech. As we mentioned earlier, these scores are processed so that the more of these behaviors and banter are taking place, the higher the score will be. Now let's look at how these scores are linked to those aspiring to become a PE teacher. This is the result of analyzing the variance and using multiple comparisons to see if there's a difference in the scores for peer culture regarding sexuality and romantic relationships, and sexual behavior of advisors involving management. This is among those who aspire to become physical education teachers, those who aspire to teach other subjects, and those who do not aspire to be teachers to begin with. To make the figures easier to read, the scores were converted into deviation scores with a mean of 50 and a standard deviation of 10. The results of the analysis showed no significant differences in peer culture regarding sexuality and romantic relationships, but scores regarding the sexual behavior of advisors involving management were higher for those who aspired to become PE teachers than those who aspired to teach other subjects or those who do not aspire to become teachers at all. In other words, it can be interpreted that those who aspire to become PE teachers receive more guidance and sexual speech and behavior from their advisors within their club activities. This is not to say that the peer culture regarding sexuality and romantic relationships aspect is not significant. This is the result of an analysis that focused on those who aspire to become athletic department advisors. This analysis was conducted because there seems to be a close relationship between aspirations to become a PE teacher and aspirations to become an athletic department advisor. The results showed that those who aspired to become athletic department advisors scored higher on peer culture regarding sexuality and romantic relationships, and on the sexual behavior of advisors involving management, compared to those who do not aspire to become athletic department advisors or those who do not aspire to become teachers in the first place. In other words, the more people experience these misogynistic, homophobic cultures, the more they wanted to be involved in athletic department leadership. From these analyses, we can understand that the misogynistic, homophobic conversations we saw earlier are associated with the desire to become an athletic department advisor or PE teachers. Thus, this information may provide insight into examining the issue of PE teachers' views of gender and homophobia. Now, I would like to summarize today's lecture. First, we found that misogynistic or homophobic conversations were common, especially within male athletic clubs. Although we cannot confirm similar conversations in the female athletic clubs in the interviews, we see some in the questionnaire survey, which will require more detailed examination in the future. The results also indicate that these conversations are linked with the aspiration of becoming a physical education teacher or athletic department advisor. So why do these two aspects correlate? As I explained in the interview portion, conversations about sexual matters can lead to stronger bonds, especially among boys and men. It is assumed that forming close connections within athletic activities may lead to a positive impression of athletic activities, which in turn may lead to the aspiration to become a PE teacher. However, we must also acknowledge that the reason why athletic club activities are linked to the career goal of becoming a PE teacher is because physical education is centered on quote unquote competitive sports. If other popular physical activities, such as mountain climbing, outdoor activities, yoga, and other so called lifetime sports, were the main subjects, the link between athletic club activities and physical education would not be so prominent. However, the fact that they are closely linked may be a problem of the Japanese education model, which produces a homogeneous group of PE teachers that exclude diversity in gender and sexuality. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation here. If any audience members are in need of a copy of my lecture notes, please let the office know. If you contact the office, we will pass it on to you. So if you find it necessary, please don't hesitate to contact us. Thank you very much for your attention.